There's a woman named Jill Price. In 2006, scientists confirmed she can recall every single day of her life in perfect detail. What she wore, what she ate, what someone said to her on a random Tuesday in 1994. Sounds like a superpower, right? But Jill herself calls it a burden because she also remembers every rejection, every argument, every humiliation with the same overwhelming clarity. And that reveals something most people never consider about how the brain actually works. Every cognitive advantage comes with a built in cost. Evolution didn't hand out intelligence for free, it made a trade. And the sharper your mind is, the higher the price it quietly pays. Today, we're looking at 12 cognitive costs that come specifically with high intelligence, not the usual list. These are biological trade offs your brain makes, ones that science is only now beginning to fully map. First, the memory tax. Here's the trade off: superior memory recall means painful memories are also stored in HD. Picture this: you remember the exact words your teacher used to embarrass you in seventh grade, the tone of their voice, the classroom layout, who laughed, where you were sitting. It's been 15 years, but your brain stored it like it happened yesterday. Neuroscience research shows that enhanced episodic memory encoding in high IQ individuals means emotional memories are stored with greater sensory detail. The hippocampus, your brain's memory center, doesn't just record facts, it records feelings, sights, sounds, everything. And here's what most people don't realize: your brain doesn't selectively record only the good memories. The same neural system that makes you remember a brilliant idea at 3 a.m. also forces you to relive your worst moments in full color, on repeat. That's the memory tax. You pay for clarity with permanent recordings you never asked for. 2. The prediction penalty. The trade off here is brutal. Your brain's ability to simulate the future means you're living through pain before it even happens. Real life scenario: you start a new relationship, things are good. But within 2 weeks, your brain has already simulated 3 different ways it could fall apart. You see the potential arguments, the incompatibilities, the moment when it all ends. And now you're grieving a loss that hasn't even occurred. Cognitive neuroscience calls this prospective simulation. Research by Schachter and Addis shows that the prefrontal cortex in high IQ individuals runs more complex future scenarios. It's not anxiety. It's your brain doing what it's designed to do, modeling possibilities. But here's the cost: your brain doesn't just plan for the future, it experiences possible futures emotionally, right now. In the present, you're paying the emotional cost of events that may never happen. You're crying over breakups that exist only in neural simulations. That's the prediction penalty. You don't just think about tomorrow, you feel it. And it exhausts you before tomorrow even arrives. Third, the trust deficit trade off. Reading people accurately destroys your ability to maintain trust. Here's how it shows up: a friend tells you they're fine, but you catch the micro shift in their voice, the 0 to 2 second delay before they smiled, the way their eyes moved left before answering. Now you can't stop wondering what they're hiding. Not because you're paranoid, because your brain detected a pattern it physically cannot ignore. Psychology research on theory of mind shows that high IQ individuals have superior social cognition. You read micro expressions, you notice tonal inconsistencies, you detect lies people don't even know they're telling. And that creates a silent problem. You see through people's social masks so clearly that genuine trust becomes almost impossible. Every conversation becomes an analysis, every smile gets decoded, every "I'm fine" gets questioned. You're not choosing to distrust people. Your brain is just showing you data that others don't see. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. That's the trust deficit. Knowing too much about human behavior becomes a tax on every relationship you try to build. You want to trust, but your brain keeps handing you reasons not to. 4. The speed tax. The trade off. Fast cognitive processing means chronic frustration, waiting for the world to catch up. Imagine this: you're in a 1 hour meeting, the problem is presented. Within the first 8 minutes, you've understood the issue, seen the solution, and mentally mapped out the implementation. The remaining 52 minutes feel like being trapped underwater in slow motion. People are still discussing the basics, asking questions you answered internally half an hour ago, and you have to sit there nodding, pretending this pace feels normal. Neuroscience research on neural efficiency, particularly Arthur Jensen's work, shows that high IQ brains literally transmit information faster. Neural conduction velocity, the speed at which your neurons fire, is measurably quicker, which means your brain operates at a speed the world wasn't designed for. Conversations feel slow, explanations feel repetitive, processes feel painfully inefficient. You're not impatient. You're neurologically stuck in an environment running at half your clock speed, and there's no way to slow yourself down to match it. That's the speed tax. Being faster doesn't mean you finish first. It means you spend most of your life waiting. And that waiting accumulates into a specific kind of exhaustion that nobody around you understands. Fifth, filter fatigue. Trade off. Complex understanding means constant self editing. You never fully express what you're actually thinking. Real scenario: someone asks your opinion on something. You start forming your answer. Then you realize it requires 10 minutes of context, 3 caveats, 2 frameworks they don't have, and a reference to a concept they've never heard of. So you just say, yeah, I agree, and swallow the rest. Cognitive load theory explains this perfectly. There's a gap between your internal complexity and the external communication capacity of most conversations. And that gap creates what psychologists call expressive suppression. Every day you edit, you simplify, you reduce your thoughts to a version that fits into normal conversation length. And slowly, over years, you stop trying. Not because you have nothing to say, but because what you want to say would take longer than anyone is willing to listen. You've learned that full explanations make people uncomfortable. Nuance sounds like you're overcomplicating. Depth reads as showing off. That's filter fatigue, the cognitive cost of translating yourself into a language the world can process. You're not quiet because your mind is empty. You're quiet because your mind is too full and there's nowhere to put it. Number 6, the feeling blind spot. Trade off. Analytical power means you analyze emotions instead of experiencing them. Here's the scenario: someone close to you passes away. You know you should be devastated, but instead of crying, your brain immediately starts analyzing grief as a psychological process. You understand the 5 stages intellectually, you can explain it, but you can't access the feeling itself. Then, weeks later, it hits you at a random moment in a grocery store, while driving, and you don't even know why. Research on alexithymia, the difficulty identifying emotions, shows something interesting. High cognitive ability can create over-reliance on cortical processing of emotions. Your prefrontal cortex, the thinking part, bypasses your limbic system, the feeling part. Psychologists call this cognitive affective dissociation. Your brain is so good at understanding emotions that it forgets to actually feel them. You become a spectator of your own emotional life, watching it, narrating it, explaining it, but not living it. That's the feeling blind spot. Intelligence gives you clarity about emotions. But clarity isn't the same as connection. And the cost is that you're often the last person to know what you're actually feeling. Seventh, the perspective prison trade-off. Cognitive flexibility means losing your own identity and convictions. Real life moment. Two friends are arguing about something. Politics, relationships, doesn't matter. They both turn to you for support. And you genuinely can't pick a side. Not because you're weak, but because your brain has already built complete models of both positions. You see the valid points on both sides, the flaws on both sides. And neither argument is fully wrong. Research by Petty and Krosnick on attitude strength shows that higher cognitive flexibility correlates with weaker attitude certainty. The ability to mentally simulate opposing views actually weakens your personal conviction. When you can see every angle of every argument, holding your own position feels almost dishonest. You know the counter arguments too well. You understand the exceptions. You see the gray. So you trade conviction for comprehension, and slowly, over time, you lose sight of what you actually believe. Not because you don't think, but because you think too much from too many directions. That's the perspective prison. Being able to see all sides means never fully standing on one. And people mistake that for not having a backbone, when really it's just your brain refusing to ignore evidence that contradicts what you want to be true. Number 8, the fixer's curse. Trade off. Problem solving ability means you cannot accept what's broken and unfixable. Scenario. You've been in a relationship that clearly isn't working. Everyone around you can see it, your friends have said it, even you know it logically. But you can't walk away because your brain keeps generating solutions, new communication strategies, different approaches, behavioral adjustments. You see the fix so clearly that accepting the broken feels like giving up. Behavioral psychology calls this solution oriented cognitive bias. High IQ brains treat every problem as solvable, which creates persistence bias even in situations that genuinely have no solution. The same mind that can solve complex equations cannot accept that some things, some people, some situations are simply not yours to fix. And that inability costs you years. Years in jobs that drain you, but you keep trying to improve. Years in relationships that hurt you, but you keep trying to repair. Years solving problems that were never problems to solve, they were realities to accept. That's the fixer's curse. Your brain's greatest strength, finding solutions, becomes the thing that traps you in unsolvable situations. And you can't stop because stopping feels like failure. Ninth, the early arrival problem. Trade off. Accelerated learning means reaching conclusions the world isn't ready for. Picture this: you're 22. Your friends are excited about climbing the career ladder, building the perfect resume, playing the networking game. And you're sitting there already seeing through it. You've mentally processed the entire path. You know where it leads. You've already answered questions they won't even ask for another decade. You're not cynical, you're not depressed, you just arrived at the destination while everyone else is still enjoying the road. Psychologist Kazimierz Dabrowski studied this in his theory of positive disintegration. Intellectually advanced individuals often undergo existential processing decades earlier than average. Most people discover life's illusions gradually: the career myth, the relationship script, the success formula. They get to be disappointed slowly, which gives them time to adjust. You don't get that luxury. Your brain fast forwards through the illusions, and the result is a kind of premature wisdom that feels more like premature aging. That's the early arrival problem. You don't get to be naive. You don't get to believe in things long enough to enjoy them. And by the time your peers start questioning what you questioned years ago, you're already tired of the conversation. Number 10, the depth trap. Trade off. Hyperfocus capability means missing life happening around you. Real moment, you sit down to research something at 2 p.m. Just a quick look. When you finally look up, it's 11 p.m. You haven't eaten, you missed 3 calls, your partner has already gone to bed, the world kept moving, and you weren't in it. Research by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi on flow states shows that high IQ individuals enter hyperfocus more easily. But there's a cost. During deep cognitive engagement, your dorsolateral prefrontal cortex suppresses peripheral attention. Translation: when you go deep, everything else disappears. Not because you don't care, but because your brain is neurologically designed to block it out. Your ability to go deep is extraordinary. It's how you solve things others can't. It's how you create. It's your superpower. But depth has a cost. Every hour spent inside your head is an hour you weren't present in your actual life. Those hours accumulate quietly. Missed moments, forgotten conversations, relationships that slowly drift because you were intellectually somewhere else. That's the depth trap. You can dive deeper than almost anyone, but every time you do, you surface to find that life moved on without you, and nobody waited. Number 11th, the achievement void. Trade off. Quick mastery means success feels hollow. Scenario: you worked toward a promotion for months. You strategized, you executed, you got it, and the moment it happened, you felt almost nothing. No celebration, no pride, just a brief mental checkmark and an immediate "what's next?" Your brain had already solved it before you even arrived. Neuroscience research on dopamine prediction error, particularly Wolfram Schultz's work, explains this perfectly. When your brain accurately predicts an outcome, the reward signal is diminished. Dopamine, the neurochemical responsible for pleasure and motivation, spikes when something unexpected happens. But high IQ brains predict outcomes more accurately, which means the surprise is gone. And without surprise, the dopamine release is significantly reduced. You don't get the same satisfaction from winning because your brain already knew you would. The reward system is built on the unexpected, and your mind has removed the unexpected from almost everything. Promotions you saw coming, relationships that unfolded exactly as you modeled, projects you completed exactly as planned. That's the achievement void. The better you get at predicting your life, the less satisfying it becomes to actually live it. And nobody understands why you're not happy when you're winning. Final cost, the rest resistance. Trade off. Neural hyperactivity means your brain biologically fights against shutdown. You know this one intimately. You're lying in bed, physically exhausted, eyes closed, body ready. But your brain has decided this is the perfect time to redesign your entire life plan, replay a conversation from last week, and suddenly develop intense curiosity about how black holes form. You're not choosing to stay awake. Your brain is choosing for you. Research on the default mode network shows that high IQ individuals have higher baseline neural activation during rest states. Even when you're trying to sleep, your brain is more active than most people's waking state. Add to that elevated cortisol and norepinephrine levels, stress hormones that disrupt melatonin-driven sleep onset, and you have a brain that treats rest as wasted processing time. It fights shutdown the way a computer fights being turned off mid-download. There's always one more thought, one more connection, one more question. And the cost isn't just tiredness. It's a slow, invisible erosion of the physical health you need to sustain the very mind that won't let you sleep. That's rest resistance, your brain's refusal to turn off. And over years, it doesn't just cost you sleep. It costs you the body that carries the mind you can't quiet. Every one of these costs is real, and none of them are a sign that something is broken. They're the invoice your brain generates for running at a level most systems weren't designed to support. You don't need to fix the way your mind works, but you do need to read the invoice. Because the moment you understand what you're paying, you can finally stop wondering why the price feels so high. And that understanding, quiet as it is, changes everything. See you in the next one.